What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV. Smiles back on our faces as Spurs leapfrog West Ham and are out the relegation zone for the first time in a couple of weeks. And you know what?
Couple of weeks that was.
You know what? Wins are like London buses. You wait so long for one to come, and then suddenly two just come along. 2 away games, 2 in the Midlands. They said, you know, coming up against bottom of the table Wolves. Yeah, you might win that game, but that's probably going to be your last win for the rest of the season. But we've gone to Villa Park, we've taken all 3 points, and we have played them off the park as well. I was there yesterday, and it was absolutely phenomenal, man. Everything about the day yesterday was just fantastic, from the weather to the pints to the songs, the atmosphere. Everything was just phenomenal. The performance to match it as well.
What a day, what a day. We've waited a long time to see a Tottenham performance like that, especially in such a big moment, considering how this season has gone and the position that Zerbi has picked up this Spurs team in. It was just such a breath of fresh air and a shock, really, watching Tottenham play like they did yesterday, dominating that Villa team, taking the game to them, being brave, being confident, physically imposing themselves. And I think definitely when the lineups got announced, there was a bit of, okay, Villa have rested a few players. It's definitely a good opportunity for us, and especially after West Ham's loss yesterday. I'm like, okay, if we can somehow get a win here, it really puts us in the driving seat. But I did not expect us to be so as dominant as we were. We just controlled the game. We controlled the ball. They couldn't get near us. They were chasing shadows for pretty much the whole game. Most definitely in that first half. That first half was embarrassing, really, how one-sided it was. It was the only bad thing about the first half was we weren't more than 2 goals up. That was the only sad thing about it. But to watch us play, it's how confident that we did. It was just a joy. It was a joy to watch, and all credit at the moment to Zerbi for getting this team into play that way after such a small amount of time, because there's no mean feat with where he picked up this team. I think that's probably the best on the ball performance by far we've seen from this team this season by a long way. And it was I just couldn't believe what I was watching. I was like, I couldn't believe that we were just so dominant.
And it was a real performance in the image of Roberto De Zerbi yesterday, wasn't it? With the pressing, with the endeavour, with the work rate, the grit that Spurs were showing, you know, playing out from the back and the nice little passing moves Spurs were putting together. I'm like, what is this club? Like, what is this team I'm seeing? Because for the whole season, we haven't been able to string 2 passes together. And suddenly, we were just playing it around like Aston Villa, like they weren't even there. And look, you got to say, with all the narrative coming into the game, we were all saying, come on, Unai. Come on, Unai. You know you want to. You got a big game on Thursday night. Rest a few players. We did it for you at the back end of last season. So return the favour. And he definitely did. And I think the players that were on the pitch for Villa definitely had one eye on Thursday. I think you could definitely say that. I think they weren't running as hard. You know, they were finding it difficult to pass their own. I think, look, I think we made it difficult for them. Don't get me wrong. We played very well in our own right. But Villa were definitely willing participants yesterday in the game, and I think that was the worst Villa performance I've seen for a long time.
Yeah, and as you say, off the ball, they seemed to be chasing shadows. On the ball, they were just moving it so slowly, like they were playing in a sandpit or something, that they just couldn't move the ball.
It felt like they just didn't want to risk any injuries for the game on Thursday. I think that's what it was.
Yeah, and you look at the team lineup, it's not a horrendous team. That, like, they played a very similar team a few weeks ago, I think, when they played Sunderland, and they won that game 4-3. I know they nearly lost it, but they did win it, and they put in a much better performance on that day than they did yesterday. So this isn't a team like you're bringing the likes of Mings, who's played a lot for them. You're bringing Maatsen. He was part of that Dortmund team that got to the Champions League final, and he's been not bad for Villa this season. Lindelof's very experienced. You've got Sancho. I know he's been horrendous, but he's still a winger who's played a lot of times in the Premier League. You've got Tammy Abraham, who scored the winner the other week. So they're not bringing teenagers or kids. You know, when Tottenham had their injury crisis last year. We were playing Gray at centre back, you know, Bergval, Mikey Moore was on the wing. Like, that's the level we were playing at, and no one gave us anything. No one was
Fraser Forster.
no one was saying we're throwing games or anything or like that. But all of a sudden, Villa are using their squad. They're just rotating a bit, and now they're throwing the game. Apparently, everyone's saying it's like the work, like that team. I saw someone say that team wouldn't have looked out of place in the Championship. I mean, they played like that, but in terms of just the lineup on paper, it wasn't a terrible lineup.
The narrative is so stupid. I'm hearing people saying Villa threw the game. There's got to be an inquiry into this for match
The
fixing.
integrity of the league.
Exactly, all that kind of bollocks. And I'm thinking, wait a second. Crystal Palace a few weeks ago rested all their big players against West Ham. And West Ham couldn't get over the line and get the result. But Villa here have probably played a stronger team to what Crystal Palace played a few weeks ago, and we've got over the line in a great performance. But no one says shit about Crystal Palace last week, because the narrative is everyone wants to relegate Spurs and they want the story. That's what it is.
They're just salty. I think everyone was tuning in yesterday, hoping to another dagger another nail in our coffin for relegation. Everyone was tuning in, expecting the worst, rubbing their hands together. Okay, Villa win this, Tottenham another step towards the drop, and unfortunately they got unpleasantly surprised, and they were probably annoyed, and they just frustrated, and they're now they're focusing their frustrations on a Villa team who rightly rested players in the situation that they're in. I think most managers would have rotated their squad ahead of a massive European semi-final. So I think it's just misplaced frustration because everyone is clamouring for Tottenham to go down, and they didn't get what they wanted yesterday.
Yeah, and nobody's going to say shit today about the Nottingham Forest lineup. You know, Nottingham Forest playing Chelsea. What about the poor teams that are going up against Chelsea for European football?
Yeah, Brighton,
where's the
Bournemouth.
integrity of the league? Where's your frustration towards Nottingham Forest today? There's not going to be any, because Tottenham are not going to be on the perceived receiving end of any of these changes. So all this kind of talk and narrative from the pundits, from fans online, I think is absolute garbage and absolute nonsense. I've never heard anything like it. Like, we didn't hear this at all last season when Spurs were resting players for the European games. Well, our season was done in the Premier League. Aston Villa's season is done in the Premier League. It's actually mad that Nottingham Forest have made as many changes as they've made today.
Yeah, I'm shocked.
Like, that Nottingham Forest team today is a lot weaker than what Villa played yesterday. A lot weaker.
But also, what people are saying is, if people are making the argument that if you make that many changes to your first team, then that's the equivalent of throwing the game, or you can't expect to win Premier League games if you make that many changes. Well, that's been our reality for about 3 years now, especially 2 years. That has been our reality. So are they saying that Tottenham have been doing well just to stay in the league, essentially, with the amount of injuries that we've had and the amount of players we've had missing for such a long period of time?
Might be the case this season.
Maybe, but that has been our reality. Tottenham have, I mean, I would love to have been able to make changes like Villa did yesterday and have a squad that deep. We are, all this bollocks about Villa making changes. Look how many players we have missing. Do you think that was our first team yesterday? Do you think that's our strongest 11? I understand we've got more motivation and stuff, but you can't really compare. Villa probably had more first teamers yesterday than us. Even though
Emi Martinez, Matty Cash, Morgan Rogers, they had some good players on the pitch yesterday.
Yeah, Tielemans. You know, how many did we have? We had Porro, Van der Ven, Udogie, probably Bentancur, and that's it.
Yeah, pretty much. Everyone else is squad players.
It's madness.
Yeah.
So
it's just all it is Spurs haters really salty that they couldn't see the downfall of Tottenham Hotspur last night. But look,
sorry to disappoint.
Forget all of that, because I think it's more important to focus on how good Spurs were actually yesterday, and the fighting spirit that I saw from that team yesterday. First of all, the lineup. What was your kind of initial reaction when you saw the lineup?
I wasn't shocked. I was saying before the game, I wanted Basuma to play, but I think he is going to go with Paulinho. And he did go with Paulinho. And to be fair, I'm delighted that he did, because he was absolutely amazing.
I was the opposite to that, wasn't it? Because I wanted Paulinho to play, but I thought he was going to play Basuma. But
no, in terms of apart from that, it was the lineup I expected. It's no real shocks. I was really great to see Udogie back in the team. I was delighted he made it.
Played 90 minutes as well, didn't he?
Played 90 minutes. Because Spence came on a right wing, didn't he? Which is a bit of a surprise. I was happy he went with tell Richarlison Moani, kept that, just tried to give confidence to our forward players, which ended up working well. And then I was looking at the Villa lineup, and obviously the changes, I was pretty happy that they made a lot of changes. And I was looking at that is a team we could definitely get at. Like, if there is an opportunity here. So before the game, when the lineups got released, I was pretty happy. I wasn't like confident we were going to win. I definitely thought Villa would be give much more of a fight than they did. But I definitely looked at that thinking, all right, we do have an opportunity today, because Villa definitely have one eye on, it turned out to be two eyes on the Europa League semi-final. And if we can get off to a good start, if we can get in the lead before they bring on all their big players, then we've got a really good chance to. I was saying on the watch along, I think it's so important in the first half or the early exchanges to really take advantage of Villa resting all those players, because later on they're going to bring on Watkins, they're going to bring on all their other players, and then it's going to change things. And if we're not ahead, or if we're even behind when that happens, and we're chasing the game when Watkins is coming on, then we're in trouble. But if we have a lead and we've got something to hang on to, then it's going to be a lot more. That's going to be a lot better for us, and it's going to breed confidence. It's going to be a lot more difficult for Villa to get back in the game. And it turned out Villa didn't even bring on their guys till a lot later.
Yeah, they brought on Watkins on the hour mark, and then they didn't make any other changes until
which
like
shocked
5
me
minutes
as well.
to go, yeah.
Which again showed about maybe their lack of focus on this game. But I think the lineup's definitely played into our hands, I'd have to say.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, and I was delighted to see João Palhinha play. I thought it was as you mentioned, so important to take the lead early. 12 minutes in, Conor Gallagher. Is that our first? I know it's not directly, but it kind of was our first goal this season from a long throw, because Dan Sove chucks in that long throw and then it falls out to Conor Gallagher like quite far out.
Off the top of my head, I can't. We haven't scored directly from one, I don't think. But yeah, I guess so.
But what a hit from Conor Gallagher, man. The way he touched it and took it past that man and just smashed it into the far corner. That is what we've been calling for Conor Gallagher to do, to be more of a goal threat, to take more shots from the edge of the area. And as well, everything that he brought to us off the ball yesterday as well.
It was good reward for what we had a really positive start to the game. It wasn't like we created loads of chances, but in the first minute, I know Porro nearly found Richarlison in behind. I think we nearly found Tell a couple of times in behind. We were threatening, and Villa were clearly struggling to live with us in the early exchanges. And what I think was, and I think they showed on Match of the Day, which I pointed out on the stream, what was really kind of emblematic of our performance was not even the goal, it was what happened 30 seconds before the goal. And 30 seconds before the goal, Porro plays a lot of ball down the channel, which is a bit overhit and goes through to Mings. But Richarlison doesn't give it up. And on another day, Richarlison half-heartedly goes in for a press, and Mings is able to play his way out the back, and Villa have possession again. But Richarlison, when full force in on Mings, didn't give him any time on the ball, and Mings was forced to put it out for a throw, which led to us getting the goal and taking the lead. So that was all because of our endeavour, it was all because of our hunger to win the ball back and not let Villa settle at any point during the game. And that was what really gave us the platform to obviously go ahead and win that game. And that was just emblematic of the team throughout the whole team. Everyone seemed to have the bit between their teeth. They had this hunger about them, and that led to the first goal. And as you say, Conor Gallagher, brilliant effort. What a touch, by the way. He took it out of the sky, just set himself out for a shot. Didn't just one touch and bam, low into the corner. That's his third goal, by the way. In a row.
When you brought that up on yesterday on the match preview stream, I was like, "What are you chatting about?" As soon as he scored, I was sitting there, being like, "You might have a point there,"
Third goal in a row. The
Villa Park killer, mate, Conor Gallagher.
He knows what it's like to score at Villa Park, and it was a brilliant effort.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad for him, because he needed a moment like that, because it just felt like, first of all, he's kind of the face of our failed transfer window, rightly or wrongly. That's just reality.
Well, he is, because he's the only player we brought in.
Right, but he's kind of like taken maybe unnecessary. Not I wouldn't say unnecessary, because he has been poor, but it's like because he was the only signing we made in January, and because he was kind of seen as one we didn't need, like he's like the focus on how bad he's been and the criticism for him has there's been maybe undue focus on him a lot of the time, and he obviously we haven't really taken to him because he's been poor. Tottenham have been poor, and he's a Chelsea guy as well. We didn't really need him, and so Spurs fans haven't taken to him, and it just hasn't been quite a great relationship at the moment. He needed a moment like that to kind of ingratiate himself to the Spurs fans, and it was a massive moment. Obviously, in the last few weeks, we've been talking about the work rate's been there, clearly, and he's been working his socks off, but those little things in the final third just haven't been coming off. But the thing is, like, that what I loved about yesterday is he didn't think too much about it. One touch and bam, had the shot, played on instinct. I feel like in recent weeks he's been thinking a bit too much when he's been on the ball.
I agree with that,
And
yeah.
he's been overthinking things and taking too long. But bam, on instinct, he knows he's got the quality, and it was just a beautiful effort. Nestled into the side netting. Martinez couldn't stop it, and hopefully that's more to come from Gallagher.
Yeah, I really hope so. And, you know, there's one person that has really taken to Conor Gallagher, and that is Roberto De Zerbi. I think De Zerbi loves him.
Oh, yeah.
You've seen he's played, 90 minutes, or the majority of every game that De Zerbi's been here for. And there has been options to not play him as well. So, yeah, look, I think he's growing in stature as a Spurs player. I think yesterday was clearly his best performance in a Spurs shirt by some distance.
De Zerbi said after the game, he said, when Gallagher's playing like this, it's like playing with 12 players.
And it was, because he was everywhere. He really was everywhere. I thought it was such a phenomenal display. I said to you last night, I gave him my man the match. On the
He
ball,
got
off the ball.
Chat man of the match as well.
Oh, did he? Yeah.
He did.
Yeah, he was fantastic. And I said as well yesterday, what won us that game yesterday was that three in midfield. Conor Gallagher, João Palhinha, Rodrigo Bentancur. I thought all three of them were just phenomenal. They really were absolutely phenomenal. And we've been waxing lyrical about Rodrigo Bentancur, haven't we, since he's come back from injury. But I'm not saying he was weak or poor, but I thought he was actually, you know, not as good as the other two. I thought Paulinho and Conor Gallagher were just immense. They were everywhere, both of them. Paulinho gave us a performance that we haven't seen pretty much all season from him, controlling that game, dictating. Bentancur as well. They just couldn't get any sort of legs in midfield, and that was down to those three players. And I think that's what was the real difference yesterday between the two sides.
Yeah, the midfield battle was 100% where we got the most joy from, and we dominated the most. It was I think obviously in the middle they had Bogard, they had Tielemans. Who was in the number 10 yesterday? Was it Rodgers?
For Villa,
No. Barkley. So they had those three. Obviously, only Tielemans is a regular starter, isn't he? And he's not the most energetic. And I think they noticed very early on, if we just get at them a full pelt, use all our energy, we can dominate this, like in the middle physically. They just couldn't get near us in the middle of the park. We were able to just play very quickly and very sharply those quick interchanges down the middle. And Bogard, Tielemans, and Barkley just couldn't really get near us. We were too physical for them. And what I loved about the game was, Benton. What did we say the whole season pretty much when we've seen Paulinho and Bentancur together? Oh, they can't play together. It's too defensive. They're so pragmatic. They can't play forward. Well, yesterday they didn't have any trouble doing that, did they? They were just playing it between themselves, quick interchanges. Paulinho, by the way, some of his switches of play, which I've criticised him before, they've lacked quality. But yesterday, pretty much most of them were on point. He was playing some lovely dinks over the top to Matisse as well. Bentancur, obviously we know he's got that confidence to turn on the ball when he's playing at his best. And I thought those two just completely dominated in the middle, and Villa were chasing shadows at times. And Paulinho and Bentancur are not two midfielders that you associate other midfielders to chase shadows against. Those usually are players that when you press them, they struggle on occasion, and they struggle to keep possession when they're under pressure. To be fair, you have to say the Villa pressure wasn't the highest that it could have been, was it? And so maybe that benefited them. But still, I've seen many a time Paulinho and Bentancur against many midfields struggle to keep the ball. And it doesn't matter how aggressive their press is. So I think it just goes to show the difference in mentality of the coach and how he approaches the game and how he sets teams up, and can make players look completely different.
Yeah, it's all coaching. It's all about coaching. We've been saying it all season regarding Thomas Frank. He's not coaching this into them, on the ball, build up play, passing. It's all been poor. But we've been saying it all season. It's not like these players can't pass. They know how to pass. They're professional footballers. They just need better coaching. And I think the job that Roberto De Zerbi has done in such a short space of time, it's nothing short of phenomenal. It really is. You got to look at it, right? He's come in against Sunderland. We lost the game. Then we drew against Brighton, and now we're back-to-back wins. You can't really ask for much more.
I mean, we're a point away from being 3 back-to-back wins.
Yeah.
A minute away, sorry.
A minute away, yeah.
A minute away. In terms, go back to the game just in the first half, because I think most of it was all done in the first half. I felt like the second half, we were just managing the game. Villa didn't really seem bothered, did they? It was a bit of a dead game in the second half. But first half, in terms of what we were doing so well, I thought, first of all, that, as we were saying, dominating the ball in the middle, just keeping possession so well. There was a one period just before the second goal. They flashed up on the screen. In the last 5 minutes, we'd had 82% possession.
Wow.
And that period of play culminated in us getting the ball out wide to Tell, him whipping it to the back post, and Moani obviously nearly scoring. And then obviously from that corner, we ended up getting the second goal. But that was emblematic of what was so great about watching that team yesterday. It wasn't a performance where we were giving encouragement to Villa and then hitting them on the transition, or winning it, getting a ball recovery in the middle and then just hitting the space. We were actually dominating the ball, keeping the ball, basically pulling Villa all over the place, asking them questions they didn't like the answers to. We were pulling them all over the place and then just looking for the gaps. And it was just pure on-the-ball dominance at times in that first half. And it wasn't just possession for possession's sake as well. We were actually getting into dangerous areas and creating chances on the end of those things as well. And so that period of play was so just encouraging. As a passage of play I don't think I've seen from Tottenham this season, or even probably for a very long time, but definitely this season we haven't seen Tottenham keep the ball for such a long passages of play while also getting into those dangerous areas. And I thought as well, both Tell and Moani looked so much more confident when they had the ball, taking on their fullback and getting in behind them and winning corners, creating chances, getting crosses in the box. They seemed like different players, especially Moani. He seemed like a different player yesterday. I think Tell, we've seen moments like that from him yesterday, but he had a bit more quality about him with his delivery, you have to say.
His crossing is the best crossing I've seen all season from any Spurs player.
Yeah, I mean,
yesterday.
The cross from Moani was brilliant. The cross for the goal was insane, on his weaker foot, by the way. What a ball that was, Ryan Richarlison's head. But Moani, I have to say, he seemed to just have a different hunger about him. He was, I think I read a stat, he had won 10 out of 13 duels, ground duels yesterday. He worked his socks off, but whenever he got the ball, he was taking on Maatsen. And I was thinking before the game, Maatsen, he's more of a winger converted to a fullback than he is a natural fullback. He can be got at. He's not the best defensively. His best work comes when he's going forward and he's attacking. And I think Moani really took advantage of that yesterday. I think Maatsen really struggled against him. 100%.
I think whatever Roberto De Zerbi has done this week, take him out for breakfast, lunch and dinner every day since the last games, clearly worked, because he looked bang up for it yesterday. I don't know if they showed you on TV the moment when he got taken off and he was walking around the pitch. I mean, he was getting, so much love from the fans, and he was giving it back, high-fiving everyone that he was going past, giving the old fist pumps and everything like that. He looked delighted within himself in the performance, and then the reaction from the fans as well. So I was very happy with Moani. I've given him so much shit since he's come to the club, and particularly of late, I've been saying I don't want to see him play, but he proved me wrong yesterday in terms of just his sheer effort, desire and work rate for the team. I was just so happy to see it. I really was. But every player, you can't doubt any player yesterday on the pitch. De Zerbi's clearly got it into them. I think that with the win last week, it's obviously, that we've got momentum on our side now, especially with West Ham losing yesterday, but we'll get into that in a little bit. At half-time, I was like, wow, we've been so dominant here. I looked at the stats and I just couldn't believe how dominant we actually were. Those stats, they didn't have one shot, 0 XG. And it's just like...
They didn't have a touch in our box.
It's just mad. What Villa saw in that first half is what Spurs have been seeing all season, pretty much.
They were Thomas Frank Spurs, pretty much. They were the... They were getting the XG nightmares. 0.00. I think they said it was the first time they haven't had a shot in the first half, I think all season. So that just goes to show how dominant we were, and how very, very much Villa just weren't up for it at all. I think it's a bit of a combination of both. But there's one thing not being up for it, but you've got to take advantage of that. You've got to make sure you're on the front foot and you're pressing them into oblivion, and you're just making sure that you completely don't let that opportunity, you grab that opportunity with both hands, essentially. That's exactly what we did. And 2-0 up, probably flattered Villa at the break. And as you say, half-time, we were flying, we were cruising. We probably couldn't believe how easy it was in that first half, if we're all being honest.
Yeah, but it's, you got to put the work rate in, and you got to, they were just bang up for it, the players. You could just tell how much they wanted it. You really could, no pun intended, for Matisse. But even Danso, Mickey van der Ven, I thought Pedro Porro as well, he was just he was like a bull in a china shop, Pedro Porro. I mean, defensively, I thought he was absolutely spot on. I think he was winning the majority of his balls. He was flying in with the tackles. I think he was so good yesterday.
There was
Porro.
one moment, I think, which summed up his performance in the second half. I think who was on the left hand? I think Rodgers on the left hand side. He's squaring him up. He then makes the tackle. It falls to Tielemans. He puts a cross in. Porro blocks it. Goes back to Tielemans. He makes a pass forward. Porro blocks that again.
I
then
remember that.
Goes back to Tielemans, and then Porro gets a challenge, and it goes off Tielemans, and he wins the throw. And I was like, wow, that really summed up Pedro Porro yesterday. I thought he was exceptional, and he was always supporting Moani as well. Every time Moani got forward, he was always there to help back him up, and if he needed a pass off and to get crossed in the box. So, really good performance from Porro.
It's just like Zerbi can't get praised high enough for the job that he's done at Tottenham. You know, we kept saying it in terms of what I was saying before about the coaching, about the passing, about the build-up play, but not much is being said about the defence. You know, we keep talking about Kinski every week about how good his performances are, but he's not getting tested. But that is all down to Roberto De Zerbi and how he set up this team and how he's made us a solid outfit. Before he came in, we were conceding 3 or 4 goals, never mind shots a game. And now they're barely getting any shots on our goal. And that is because of how we're defending, how structured we are, and how well coached we are at this moment in time and in such a short space of time. And look, Kinski is a different level on the ball. We know that, to Vicario. But his shot stopping is not being tested, and that's why you're seeing him come under so much more praise, because his ability to just knock it to a winger, knock it upfield, pinpoint passes is just phenomenal. It really is phenomenal.
Yeah, he wasn't scared to go long, was he? And what I liked about Kinski is, I think the difference between when he puts a pass long to Vicario, whereas it seems like when Vicario goes long, he kind of just puts it in an area and hopes the Tottenham forwards can challenge for, it's not accurate. Whereas yesterday, this happened about 3 or 4 times. He played a lovely drilled long pass over the top of the Villa defence, and if one of the Villa players didn't get it, I think Lindelof a couple of times had to intercept, because if he didn't intercept, a doggy or Tell actually would have been through on goal. Yeah. All that means is it's not just a duel they're challenging with. They have to intercept that pass, and they're scrambling to intercept it because one of our players would have been through. And what that means, because the defender was scrambling to make sure he gets that interception, he's not focusing on getting that interception to a teammate, which means we can then pick up that second ball. And we did it time after time after time. But that came from the really good quality passes from Kinski. He didn't necessarily find his man every time, but if the goal isn't to find your man, the goal is to put the defence under pressure so that they're when they win that duel, or when they're header, they make it difficult for them to do it, so that we can pick up those second balls. And all of a sudden we've got the ball in their half and we're attacking them. And that happened about 4 or 5 times in that first half. Gallagher, by the way, was brilliant. Him and Tell were very, very good at picking up those second balls and making sure that we were then on the front foot. And the Villa midfielders were not backing up the defenders, it felt, when Kinski was playing those long passes. But it all comes from him playing those really accurate long balls. And what was also great about Kinski is, which is also extremely different to Vicario, is when he's not scared to put his foot on the ball. He did for the first 10 minutes. He pretty much just spent it just putting his foot on his studs on the ball and asking the Villa players to come at him. But when a player runs on your blind side so that it cuts off a passing lane, it does that because he assumes that you're only going to use your strong foot, so that pass to the side is then blocked off because the players bending their run and coming from the side. But Kinski was very comfortable with both feet, so he was very comfortable shifting the ball on his left and just playing that pass outright to the fullback, and so that meant that we could break their press very, very easily, and that passing wasn't locked off. So Kinski in build-up was absolutely phenomenal, I felt. Absolutely phenomenal.
No, I completely agree. Fantastic. He just calms everything down as well. Like when Vicario was on the ball, it's just so erratic, and you're so nervous, and you think a mistake is about to happen, and it does sometimes. And I just feel so calm when Kinski has it at the back, and I think the defence must feel like that as well. And you know what I was saying about before about the defence as well, and he's done this without Romero. You know, we were saying Romero. You know, you were saying this is like a nail in our coffin, Romero being out, but we've just got better. We have got better without Romero at the back.
It's just because we're defending less. We're keeping the ball. I think, obviously, Romero got injured in his first game. We don't know what would happen if he would have stayed fit. But I think we probably would have looked even better, to be honest. Because I think Danso's been great. Obviously, I think the one time they got him behind was because Danso made a loose pass and Van der Ven had to cover for him. But we're defending less. That's the reason why we're not conceding. It's not because we are being organised. Don't get me wrong. We are, when we're off the ball, we're getting into our shape and we're not giving up as many shots. But the reason why we're not conceding as many shots and chances is because we're keeping the ball more. When we're keeping. When you have possession, it's a lot harder for the opposition to create chances and shoot. And
You thought we wouldn't be able to keep the ball without Romero in the team, though?
Huh? Sorry?
You thought maybe we wouldn't be able to even keep the ball without Romero in the team?
Well, we've been able to. That's Zerbi. That's absolutely... Zerbi's been like... Having Danso and Paulinho there, I'm like, we're going to struggle to keep the ball. But they've, not... I think Zerbi, the way he's got us set up is absolutely phenomenal. I don't think it's a case of we're just like super tight defensively and we're not giving any chances. It's not. I don't think that's the case. It's just the fact that we're a lot better at keeping possession. And that leads to the opposition getting a lot less encouragement and a lot less of the ball, so a lot less time to create chances. And we're suffocating the opposition as well, especially when they're on the ball in their half, in their build-up. We're suffocating them a lot more than we were. Also, Danso, I thought, was so brave. The amount of times he's stepping out of when we're going man-to-man, he's following, whether it be Barkley or Abraham or Rodgers or whatever it is, he's following them all the way into their own half and not giving them an inch. And I thought that was something he did really well yesterday. So, yeah, defensively, we look a lot better. But again, I think that this is a lesson that you don't have to go defensive to be more defensive.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we've been told the whole season. Oh, he's doing this because he's got to work out the defence before we work out the attack and all this bollocks that we heard from Thomas Frank earlier in the season.
Attack is the best form of defence.
That's it. Like, if you attack more, you defend less. That's a simple lesson of football. And I think that's what we've learned, or what we've seen, I should say, since Zerbi's come in.
Yeah, 100% agree. Couldn't agree more. And I think, like I keep saying, I can't stop waxing lyrical about De Zerbi. The changes he's just made in such a short space of time. But look, fantastic result yesterday, and a result and a weekend that could prove to be very significant